Welcome, traveler. Tonight we'll be journeying together through the forgotten scrolls and spellbound halls of Tamriel. A quiet tale beneath the stars, told slowly and softly to help you drift into peaceful sleep. As always, this story is best listened to with your eyes closed, a warm blanket nearby, and your thoughts far, far away. After the tale ends, a gentle ambient soundscape of wind, distant owls, and a softly crackling campfire will continue, keeping you company as you fade into dreams. Before we begin, take a moment to comment the time and place you're watching from. It's always a comfort to know how far our little circle has reached. Now, settle in. Let the world grow still, and let us begin. In the quiet corners of Tamriel, beneath starlit skies and beside ancient groves, there exists a force as essential and ever-present as the wind that rustles through the trees or the sun that warms the mountain stone. This force is not seen, but felt, an energy that weaves its way through both the mortal realm and the heavens above. It is called magic, and those who possess the wisdom to shape it are known across the lands as mages, or sometimes wizards. Tamriel is home to many such individuals, practitioners of arcane arts who dedicate their lives to uncovering the deeper mysteries of the world. Across the provinces, guilds and schools rise in devotion to this craft, with entire factions striving to refine their knowledge and ascend as greater wielders of this enigmatic power. And so, on such a night, a question lingers in the air like mist on a moor. Who among them is the greatest mage the Elder Scrolls has ever known? Fear not, my fellow initiates and curious minds, together we'll examine the most formidable contenders from Tamriel's long and storied history, and then, with certainty, I will reveal who I believe to be the true greatest mage of them all. And let us also set boundaries to this enchanted inquiry. We shall not include the divines or entities whose very nature exceeds mortal comprehension. Figures such as Sotha, Syl, or Julianos, for instance. To compare them with ordinary mages would be a disservice to both. Likewise, I will refrain from including those of the Psijic order exclusively, as their understanding of magic, though unmatched, differs so profoundly from traditional spellcasting that it would not be a fair comparison. According to writings on Artaeum itself, their techniques belong to another realm entirely. Also, consider this: the world has known far more remarkable mages than it has heroes of blade or shadow. So, in the interest of our time and tranquility, I've chosen to narrow the list for this tale, focusing only on those most significant and memorable. And with those spells of clarification cast, let us turn our gaze toward the threads of fate and lore, and begin with a name wrapped in shadow. Manimarco, who came to be known as the King of Worms, and later the God of Worms, stands unrivaled as the most infamous necromancer and lich the world has ever seen. Though once counted among the esteemed ranks of the Psijic order, whose members are often removed from what we call mages, Manimarco was unlike his peers. Where others pursued enlightenment, he turned his mind toward something darker and more forbidden: the study of necromancy a school of magic outlawed and feared across Tamriel. His descent into darkness began within the hallowed halls of Artaeum. One among his fellow scholars, a man by the name of Vanis Galerian, discovered the grim nature of Manimarco's interests. When he brought this discovery to the attention of the Order's leaders, Manimarco was cast out, exiled from their hidden isle, and bound once more to the lands of Tamriel. After his banishment from the Psijic Order, Manimarco did not fade into obscurity. Far from it, with a patience born of centuries and a mind sharpened by forbidden knowledge, he gathered followers to his cause, dark-hearted souls who shared his vision. From this grew a dreadful faction known across the lands as the Order of the Black Worm. This necromantic cult became a formidable force, swelling in number until they themselves summoned forth a greater horror, an undead army, vast and tireless, marching beneath Manimarco's will. But Manimarco's ambitions did not end with the restless dead. He wove his schemes ever higher, reaching toward the throne of the empire itself. In time, he ensnared Emperor Varan Aquilarios in a grand deception, tricking him into using the sacred amulet of kings to perform a dangerous ritual. This terrible act triggered what would come to be known as the Soulburst, a violent eruption of arcane energy that tore a rift between Nirn and Oblivion, blending the two realms and allowing the shadow of Molig Bal to stretch across the world. This fusion of planes was no small feat. It was a work of power seldom witnessed in all of history. Seizing the moment, Manimarco tightened his grip on power. With his undead legions and the Daedric forces of Molig Bal at his side, he took command of the imperial city. Within its walls, he set his sights on a final, terrible goal: to ascend to godhood using the very amulet of kings he had once defiled. And his plan very nearly succeeded. The arcane stars were aligning, his armies were strong, and few dared to challenge him. But fate has a way of turning on even the most cunning of men. Just as his apotheosis drew near, the 5 companions rose against him and unraveled his design, stopping his rise in the final moments. Still, Manimarco had already crossed into the domain of the undying. Though not the first lich in Tamrielic history, he became its most infamous. Through his transformation into undeath, he endured for thousands of years, his magic only growing in depth and potency. But even that was not the end of his rise. In time, Manimarco laid claim to one of the most powerful relics, known to mortals, the Montella, a shimmering vessel of divine energy. Through it, he pierced the veil of mortality and touched divinity itself, becoming what so few ever have, a god. Yet, the truth of that event is murky, for it took place during the strange phenomenon known as the warp in the West, a time when reality itself seemed to bend, and in that bending, something paradoxical occurred. Manimarco both ascended and did not. He became a god, and yet remained on Tamriel, walking among mortals. It is for this reason we encounter him again, later, in the events of the Elder Scrolls IV, Oblivion. His influence was not only in flesh and spirit, but in the artifacts he left behind. Manimarco crafted several legendary objects, the bloodworm helm, the necromancer's amulet, and the dreaded staff of worms. Each of these relics carried a shard of his power, bolstering the arts of necromancy and ensuring his legacy endured in hands both wise and wicked. There is little doubt that Mannimarco was among the most powerful mages in Tamriel's long tale, a figure who attained godhood and shaped history through magic and malice. But even greatness has its limits. His expertise, though vast, was largely centered in the conjuration of the dead and manipulation of souls. The broader tapestry of magical disciplines was left mostly untouched by him, and for all his ambition, Mannimarco met defeat time and again. First, during the catastrophic plane melt in the time of Elder Scrolls Online, again at the hands of Vanis Galerion and his gathering of magic wielders, and a final time in the era of Oblivion, when his dark reign was halted once more. Let me now turn your thoughts to the mist-veiled snows of Skyrim, where legends are etched into frost and remembered in silence. Among those legends, one name echoes with particular weight: Shalador, a figure shrouded in mystery and might. Shalador was a Nordic mage of staggering power, remembered not just for his deeds, but for the sheer scope of his magical vision. In the long-forgotten days of the First Era, it was he who laid the foundations of the College of Winterhold, not merely as a place of learning, but as a sanctum of solitude and mastery. And it was Shalador who first bore the honored title of Archmage, a name that would echo through the centuries in reverence. But the college was not his only feat. No, Shalador in his prime cast a spell so profound, so immense in scale, that from whispered words alone he raised an entire city from the ground, the city of Winter. To those who visit its broken remnants today, this might sound less than awe-inspiring, but understand, before the calamity known as the Great Collapse, Winterhold stood proud and vast, rivaling even solitude in splendor. In its prime, it was not merely a city, it was the capital of Skyrim. And this was but a fragment of his legend. For Shalador, it is told, dared reach even higher. Some say he stole the secret of life itself from the dragon god of time, Akatosh. What exactly that means is lost to the ages, a mystery pondered by many and solved by none. Yet the feat alone speaks volumes of his audacity and reach. In battle, too, he was unmatched. When the Rorcan clan of the Dwemer, known far and wide for their bitterness and brilliance, clashed with the world of men, it was Shalador who stood alone against them. The entire clan, a mighty force that had carved their legacy into the deserts of Hammerfall, fell before him. Alone, he faced them. Alone, he triumphed. There are more marvels tied to his name. It was Shalador who shaped Labyrinthian, the winding ruin that still challenges brave souls today. He designed it not as a trap, but as a trial, a gauntlet of riddles and danger meant to test future archmages. Within its winding halls were said to rest ancient secrets, possibly even the very essence of life he once stole, hidden away until another could prove worthy of them. But Shalador was not only a warrior and builder, he was a scholar of unmatched dedication. His quill captured thoughts so profound that centuries later, mages still scour Tamriel in search of his scattered manuscripts. His writings spanned a multitude of subjects, but among his most celebrated or contested was the organization of magical practice into distinct schools, though some argue it was Vanus Gilarion who solidified this system. Others give Shalidor the credit, noting his influence predates even the founding of the Mages Guild. To extend his own journey through time, Shalidor undertook powerful self-rituals, enchantments woven into his very soul, that allowed his life to stretch far beyond that of typical men, reaching into spans normally reserved for elves. But even death was not the end for him. It is said that, should his legacy or the college itself be imperiled, enchantments he laid across the veil of mortality would allow him to return to walk once more from Aetherius and strike down those who would threaten what he built. Shalidor was not merely a mage, he was an architect of magic, a warrior of the arcane, and perhaps a soul who brushed too close to the secrets of gods. Of all the names etched into the annals of magical history, his might well belong at the top. Yet even legends can be tarnished by their portrayals. And so it must be said, when Shalidor was rendered in the chronicles of the Elder Scrolls Online, the once mighty Archmage appeared less than wise. Time and time again, he was made a fool of by the mad god Sheogorath, and though such encounters with the Daedric Prince of Madness are rarely straightforward, this depiction forces us to reckon with the truth. Shalidor, for all his genius and strength, may not truly claim the title of Tamriel's greatest mage. And thus, we must turn our gaze elsewhere to another tale, one steeped in fire and sorrow. Let me tell you of Azidal. Born in the ancient city of Sarthel, he was a Nord unlike any other. Where most warriors of his kin honed steel and shield, Azidal turned his mind to the mysteries of magic. He became the first known enchanter among the Nords, and perhaps the first human to ever unravel the intricate secrets of elven enchantments. A gifted student, Azidal did not merely learn, he soared beyond the knowledge of his instructors, outshining every peer in Sarthel until he stood alone at the summit of understanding. But he was not content, believing that Sarthel had no more wisdom to offer him. Azidal made a choice. He left behind all that he held dear, including his beloved wife and child. He journeyed in search of elven masters who might teach him deeper truths. He vanished for years, wandering far lands in pursuit of arcane mastery. But when he returned, heart full of hard-won knowledge, he was met not with joy but with grief. His family, all of them, had been slain, likely by the farmer, and the home he had abandoned had been reduced to ash and silence. Driven by rage, Azidal sought to surpass even the gods of his enemies. He learned the 7 natures of metal from the deep forging Dwemer, deciphered the radiant glyphs of dawn magic from the ancient Alliance, and absorbed the teachings of the Altmer, the Chimer, and the very farmer who had broken his heart. His pursuit was relentless, and it bore fruit. With his newfound might, he joined Isgramma and the 500 companions in their campaign to drive the elves from Skyrim. To those warriors, he gifted enchantments of extraordinary strength, spells woven into blade and armor alike, empowering the companions to strike down their foes with divine fury. though the records are silent on the matter. Many believe it was Azidel who enchanted Isgrimir's famed weapons, his axe that cleaves through elven flesh with uncanny ease, and his shield that wards against the darkest magics. When Isgrimir's vengeance was complete, Azidel should have found peace. His oath was fulfilled, the blood price paid, but the hunger in him had only grown. Power alone no longer satisfied. He craved secrets, ancient and forbidden. And so his journey continued. He turned his gaze upward, to the skies above and the dragons who ruled them. From the dragons, Azidel learned the secret language of their runes, the words of power. With this final gift, he ascended within the ranks of the dragon cult, becoming a dragon priest of immense authority. His mastery of fire was enhanced tenfold by the mask he was granted, a sacred artifact that amplified his destructive spells and solidified his place among the most feared mages of his time. But even then, even after all this, Azidel was not finished. His desire for knowledge, for greater might, twisted into something dark and insatiable. He had long since abandoned the memory of his family. Now he abandoned all restraint, surrendering fully to his lust for arcane dominion. His story is not one of redemption or balance, but of ambition that consumed the man and reforged him into something more, or perhaps something less. A flame that burned so hot it scorched everything around it. Azidel, the bitter destroyer, remains one of the most formidable enchanters and dragon priests in Tamrielic history, but his tale is also a warning that in the endless chase for power, one might leave behind everything that makes them human. Azidel's hunger for knowledge did not stop with dragon magic. In time, he pledged himself to the Daedric Prince of Forbidden Secrets, Hermaeus Mora, the wretched abyss. Beneath the writhing tendrils of Apocrypha, he delved even deeper into the hidden currents of power, gaining insights beyond mortal comprehension. But the gifts of Mora come at a cost. The same mind that once shone with brilliance began to fracture. Madness crept into his thoughts, twisting ambition into obsession. Even the dragon cult, who had once revered him, found his presence intolerable, and so he was cast out. Azidel vanished from history, retreating into the shadows of Colbjorn Barrow. There, he sealed himself away from the waking world, surrounded by enchanted relics of his own making, powerful tools that would later become known as the relics of Azidel. And in that deep slumber, held in magical stasis, he transcended death. Azidel became a lich, his flesh withered, but his mind alive and burning with the fires of ancient sorcery. It was a final metamorphosis for a man who had abandoned all limits. By now, there is little doubt that Azidel stood among the most formidable magic wielders Tamriel has ever known, with a lifetime, or perhaps several, devoted to mastering every known school of magic. He may very well have achieved what so many others merely dream of, complete magical mastery. And in the art of enchanting, he remains perhaps the greatest to ever live. And yet, for all his might, Azidel remains a cautionary figure. For while he amassed endless power, he contributed little in the way of discovery. He studied what had already been uncovered. He chased the legacies of others, rather than forging his own. At least, no known creation bears his name. No breakthrough, no revolution, no new form of spellcraft that can be directly tied to him. Whether this is due to lost records or the emptiness of his pursuits, we cannot say for sure. But perhaps the saddest truth of Azadel's story is this: he could have been the greatest mage of all time. He had the brilliance, the drive, and the strength. Yet vengeance warped his purpose. Madness stole his clarity. Master Nelith, now tell me honestly, did you really think I wouldn't include Master Nelith in this list? I mean, it's practically a requirement, considering this channel bears his name. But beyond the jest, Master Nelith truly is one of the greatest living mages of our time. A master wizard of House Telvanni. His influence has stretched across centuries. In the Third Era, he ruled over the city of Sadrith Mora from his grand mushroom tower, Tel Naga. In the Fourth Era, he has established himself once more, this time on the windswept island of Solstheim, within the organic spirals of Tel Mithrin. In the Elder Scrolls III, Morrowind was something of a background figure. Powerful, yes, but elusive. We knew little of his personal achievements beyond his rank within the Telvanni hierarchy and his many followers, which already signified immense magical authority. We do know that he once possessed the fearsome artifact known as Maroon's Razor, until it was stolen from him by a troop of acrobats, of all things. Still, even in those early days, he was already a collector of Daedric relics, and that alone sets him apart. But it is in the Elder Scrolls V, Dragonborn, where Nelith's genius truly shines. Following the cataclysmic eruption of Red Mountain, Nelith made a discovery that would elude even the wisest minds of the Empire. He found strange stones, shimmering fragments of arcane potential, and gave them a name: Heartstones. Through observation, study, and intuition, Nelith correctly deduced that these stones were somehow tied to the heart of Lorkhan itself, or at the very least infused with its residual power. It was a revelation with no precedent. From this knowledge, he achieved what few others could even imagine. He constructed a staff enchanter, a device capable of imbuing raw magical essence into crafted staffs. This creation was not only functional, but elegant, and remains beyond the reach of nearly all living mages. To recreate such a tool from theory and broken fragments of divine power speaks volumes of Nelith's intellect. He is irritable, arrogant, and entirely unapologetic. But make no mistake, Master Nelith is no mere recluse in a mushroom tower. He is a force of magical nature unto himself. And though his demeanor may drive his apprentices to madness, his arcane achievements speak louder than any boast. His is a living legacy, still growing, still evolving, and still commanding awe across Tamriel. In the quiet hours, when most mages rest their minds, Master Nelith busies himself with experiments others wouldn't dare attempt. One such endeavor began with a curiosity about Spriggans. After many dissections and sleepless nights, Nelith uncovered something extraordinary. It was possible to replace a mortal's heart with a heartstone, a stone infused with the remnants of Lorkhan's divine spark. These relics offered a tantalizing promise, power far beyond the limits of the flesh. Nelith, of course, decided to test the theory. His subject was none other than his own apprentice, Ildri. The procedure was grim, and it was believed to have failed. Ildari was presumed dead, another casualty of Telvanni ambition. But the truth, as it often is with Nelith, was far more complicated. The surgery had, in fact, succeeded. Ildari was alive, though madness had taken root. Whether her mind cracked from the pain, the power, or some flaw in the heartstone, none could say for sure. But failure is just another step in Nelith's research. He studied the forsworn of the Reach wild men who had long replaced their hearts with briar hearts, bound by rituals both cruel and old. From this, Nelith finally unraveled the secret. And Nelith's genius doesn't stop at surgery. He is the proud possessor of one of Hermaeus Moras' black books, ancient tomes from the Daedric realm of Apocrypha, filled with knowledge too vast and dangerous for most to comprehend. With the help of the last Dragonborn, Nelith succeeded where no other had. He deciphered and recorded the hidden lore contained in every black book on Solstheim. All that forbidden wisdom, once scattered and sealed, now preserved by his hand and his alone. Once his research into Heartstones and black books is complete, Nelith intends to return to Morrowind. He has no interest in comfort or obscurity. His goal is clear: to assume the mantle of Archmagister and elevate House Telvanni to its former, perhaps even greater glory. And if there is anyone capable of such a feat, it is him. Nelith is more than a master wizard. He is also a master enchanter, one of the most advanced minds ever to study staves. Staffs are his craft and his obsession. From Tel Mithryn he studies, builds, and refines them endlessly, achieving what others cannot even imagine. And while Solstheim trembles under Mirok's return, while villagers fall under his control, each night through the strange influence of the All-Maker stones, Nelith remains unaffected, completely immune. He does not sleep, for sleep invites weakness. Or perhaps the sheer strength of his will is enough to keep Mirok at bay. Either way, he is untouched, unbent, unbroken. To many, he is already the greatest wizard in all of Morrowind. It's tireless, brilliant, endlessly curious. He works without pause. The only thing that seems to ever break his rhythm is a fresh cup of canis root tea. But when you weigh his achievements against those of others, against this next figure, the scales begin to tip. So, setting aside my bias in canis root tea, I must confess, the greatest mage in the history of Tamriel is Devaith Fire. Mourning aside, Devaith Fire is a 4,000-year-old Dunmer whose mastery over magic rivals that of demigods, and perhaps even true gods. He has seen the rise and fall of empires, walked the line between life and death, and shaped the very fabric of magical understanding. He is both an honorary member of House Telvanni and a member of the elusive Psijic Order, a combination so rare it almost sounds like a contradiction. Born in the Merethic era as a Chimmer, Devaith was a contemporary of the tribunal gods themselves, possibly even older, and counted Sotha Sil among his personal friends. In his youth during the First Era, Devaith dabbled in necromancy, but quickly turned his attention to higher pursuits. His fascination with conjuration took him to the far corners of Oblivion, where he trafficked with Daedra and studied their realms firsthand. a feat that most mages wouldn't dare attempt even once, let alone repeatedly. By the Second Era, Devathfire had authored numerous treatises on magic and even participated in scholarly interviews. An odd humility for someone of such arcane magnitude. He was also one of the rare mortals granted access to the Clockwork City, where, in an act of unprecedented bravery, he uncovered a conspiracy against Sothasil's life and personally saved the god engineer from assassination. And yes, you heard correctly, Devathfire went toe-to-toe with Nocturnal, the Daedric Prince of Shadows and Secrets, and lived. Let that sink in. But it is in the Third Era that Devathfire's legend becomes fully realized. Deep within the Tower of Telfire, located in the inner sea of Vardenfell, he established a sanctuary for those afflicted with Corpus, a divine, incurable disease that twists the body but preserves the mind. There he researched the condition tirelessly, not to find a cure, for Corpus cannot be cured, but to understand and master it. He created the Corpusarium, part asylum, part laboratory, part vault of arcane secrets. One of its residents was Yagrum Bargon, the last known living Dwemer, who, in his isolation and madness, shared with Devath untold knowledge of the Dwemer civilization. Through this connection, Devathfire may have learned things about tonal architecture and Dwemery science that no other living soul has ever grasped. And despite centuries of isolation, he remained one of the most respected minds in all of Morrowind, a man of legend, still walking, still experimenting, still learning. And let's not forget this, Devathfire never relied on godhood to achieve his power. He did not draw from the heart of Lorcan, nor did he bargain away his soul to Dedra, nor did he fracture reality through new. His power is self-earned, built through millennia of study, discipline, and fearless exploration. He has faced Daedric princes. He has mastered forbidden diseases. He has learned from the Dwemer. He has defied death, outlived nations, and peers down at the tribunal from his tower like a teacher watching his students quarrel. He is a scholar, an adventurer, a conjurer, a philosopher, and perhaps the only being on Nirn who could, if he wished, truly rival the gods. Devathfire even developed a potential cure for Corpus, a divine, incurable disease, and used it to cure the Nereverni, inadvertently creating a being with demigod-like traits. His version of the cure preserved the beneficial aspects of Corpus, such as immunity to aging and disease, while removing the harmful symptoms, a magical feat that remains unmatched. His research also led to the first recorded creation of clones in Tamrielic history. Fire created 4 female clones of himself, who assisted him in managing his tower and research, a testament to his understanding of both arcane manipulation and biological replication. In addition, Devathfire possesses more Daedric artifacts than nearly any known figure outside of the player protagonists. These include Scourge, a Daedric mace associated with Malakath, Saviour's Hide, a cuirass linked to Herson, and Volendrung, the legendary warhammer of the Rorcan clan, also tied to Malakath. Following the eruption of Red Mountain, Devathfire's fate is unclear. Some theories suggest he may have withdrawn into an outer realm, possibly alongside Yagrum Bagan, the last living Dwemer. though unconfirmed. Such a possibility would be consistent with his history of traversing and surviving the most dangerous and otherworldly realms. Considering his centuries-long mastery over disease, conjuration, artifact collection, Daedric dealings, and theoretical magic, as well as his survival over 4 millennia, Divaith Fire's accomplishments far exceed most mages in Tamrielic history. Not only has he studied with gods and lived as a peer to the tribunal, but he also once fought the Daedric Prince Nocturnal herself and lived. Few can claim the same. In the end, this has been an attempt to determine who might rightfully be called the greatest mage in the Elder Scrolls universe. From scholars and warlocks to Lyques and Telvanni masterminds, each mage left their mark. But one stands out, not through sheer destruction, but through endurance, insight, and an arcane legacy that may well be eternal. And so, our quiet journey draws to a close. From whispered spells in ancient ruins to towers of twisted mushroom stone, from the cold peaks of Winterhold to the silent halls of Telfire, we have traced the footsteps of Tamriel's greatest mages, their triumphs, their trials, and the deep mysteries they left behind. The stars now hang high above Nian, casting their silver glow across the land. And as the winds hum softly through the ash and snow, we let these stories rest for now, tucked away like tomes on a high shelf.